time for the Jedi to end.
What if I told you that Luke was right? Since the 27th of December 1977, we have been lucky enough to be inundated with Star Wars content. But in the last 47 years, has the thought ever occurred to you that the Jedi might not be the paragons of virtue that you have been led to believe? What if I told you that the Jedi are at worst evil and at best delusional fools plagued by aspirations of grandeur?
It is the Council's opinion that Padawan Ahsoka Tano has committed sedition against the Republic, and thus she will be expelled from the Jedi Order.
Sitting in an ivory tower made of Beskar. Join me on this deep dive into the iceberg that is the dark relationship of death, revenge, emotional blackmail and despair that the Jedi swear doesn't exist. The same as all religions, the Jedi have a group of leaders, known as the Jedi Council. They are regarded by all as upholders of the Jedi faith, the truest example of what a Jedi should be, in both character and discipline. But to be on the Council, you must first attain the rank of Jedi Master. For those of you watching who don't know what it takes to become a Jedi Master, fear not, young Padawan, for I shall teach you. You must first complete your Jedi Knight training. Then you yourself must take a Padawan, a Jedi learner, and train them until they complete their Jedi Knight training. Upon their completion of that training, you are given the rank of a Jedi Master. And with that knowledge, we begin our journey together, where all religions come to die. At the heart of their philosophy is the Jedi Code.
There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. There is no chaos, there is harmony. There is no death, there is the Force.
Let's break it down. The first line states there is no emotion, there is peace. To state something as an absolute that it either does or does not exist is thought to be a Sith ideology.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
The Jedi Code is trying to suggest the notion that no Jedi should or can feel emotion, only peace. But moreover, it elaborates that the Jedi do not feel passion. What a horrible way to live. Imagine devoting your life's purpose to something and being told that it is wrong to feel love, passion, anger, happiness or loss. All of these things are what make you alive and are what make you human. In short, the Jedi wish to teach you that they should remove themselves from emotion. This is a troubling thought that surely can't come to bite them in the arse, can it? The Jedi teach that emotions are gateways to the dark side because the Sith do not back away from emotion. The Sith Code is in direct opposition of the Jedi Code.
Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, I gain power. Through power, I gain victory. Through victory, my chains are broken.
The Sith are very open to emotion. Even in their code, they state that they are in touch with their emotions.
Through passion, I gain strength.
So why are the Jedi so scared of emotion? Do the Jedi fear passion? Fear emotion? When Yoda says,
"Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering."
is he instilling that emotion and fear is something to fear itself? As this in itself leads to the dark side? Do you remember when Anakin seeks the oldest and most wise of all the Jedi? That's right, the shriveled up old prune himself, Grand Master Yoda. Anakin, throughout his life, has been struggling with the notion of suppressing his emotions. This has never been more prevalent than when Anakin goes on that murderous rampage killing all the Tuskens who tortured his mother. Anakin is believed by the Council from a very young age to be the Chosen One. This is believed by not only Obi-Wan, but Qui-Gon, Yoda, and Mace Windu. Anakin feels he cannot trust the Council, simply because at every turn when he struggles with his emotions, the advice given to him is to simply not.
Well, that wasn't very helpful at all.
Now don't get me wrong, some Jedi and some teachings do lean into the thought that emotions aren't all bad. But sadly, when it comes to Anakin, the Chosen One, it's just not applicable. When he comes to seek Yoda's wisdom about his fears about death, loss, and suffering, he says,
The fear of loss is a path to the dark side. Death is a natural part of life. Rejoice for those around you who transform into the Force. Mourn them, do not. Miss them, do not. Attachment leads to jealousy. The shadow of greed, that is. Train yourself to let go of everything you fear to lose.
Yoda's advice to Anakin, simply put, is stop caring, life is fleeting. Now that's easy for a being whose lifespan is 800 plus years. To tell someone not to fear someone's death without providing any support, help, advice is dangerous. And yet another reason Anakin felt abandoned by those he dedicated his life to. The one time he needed help, they reinforced his fears. They told him that they're real and they ignored them all in one fell swoop. In A New Hope, many years after the fall of the Jedi Order, Obi-Wan begins Luke's Jedi training. Obi-Wan, who was a Jedi Master and a member of the Jedi High Council, who we saw at so many points confronting Anakin to control his emotions, to rebuke them.
Your need for victory, Anakin, it blinds you.
Put the ship down! Anakin! Don't let your personal feelings get in the way!
Senator Amidala and I are simply friends.
And friends you must remain. As a Jedi, it is essential you make the right choice, Anakin. For the Order.
It's never been done in the history of the Jedi. It's insulting. Oh, calm down, Anakin. You have been given a great honor.
But in the many years Obi-Wan spent in exile, convening with the late Qui-Gon Jinn, it seems if Obi-Wan has opened his mind up further on the understanding of emotions and feelings. This is shown when Obi-Wan speaks to Luke to say,
Stretch out with your feelings.
Does this mean that Obi-Wan has learnt from the failures of the Jedi? The failures of the past? Learned that feelings aren't always paths to the dark side? Maybe. Is he better for it? Possibly. Is he a better teacher for it? Definitely. The Jedi, however, are not without their own hypocrisy. Obi-Wan has been known himself to fall to emotions. But shh. We don't tell Yoda that. The old Brussels sprout will get moody. Obi-Wan comes to Anakin at a time of great need to tell him that he himself knows what it's like to love and to feel passion.
You've met Satine. You know I once harbored feelings for her. It's not that we're not allowed to have these feelings, it's natural.
He even went so far to tell Satine that,
had you said the word, I would have left the Jedi Order.
Boy, Yoda would be pissed. Doesn't it come off a bit rich of Obi-Wan to be scolding Anakin for his romantic feelings for Padme, when he himself not only has or had them for someone else, but by the Jedi's thinking allowed them to progress so far that he would willingly leave the Jedi Order to be with them? I wonder, is Obi-Wan the only Jedi to have emotional relationships with others? So maybe emotions aren't always bad, or they're just bad for the Chosen One. Well, at least the Jedi are only guilty of emotional blackmail and neglect. It's not like they, I don't know, indoctrinate children, use them as cannon fodder. Wait, no. Since The Phantom Menace, we've seen more and more evidence of indoctrination and grooming of children throughout the galaxy by the Jedi. In The Phantom Menace, Anakin is freed by Qui-Gon Jinn, much to Obi-Wan's disappointment.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
What little we know about the indoctrination practice of the Jedi is alarming. Upon Anakin's freedom, Qui-Gon Jinn takes him to the Jedi Council to be assessed, as all younglings are. Anakin, who we're informed to be the Chosen One, with ease passes the trials set before him. However, is denied by the Council to be trained because he is simply too old. But how old is too old? 9 years old is too old. The reason for training Jedi so young isn't to help them with their Force-sensitive abilities, it's to ensure the children never know what it's like to have attachments. Force-sensitive children are brought into the Jedi Order normally before the age of 6, although most join between 1 and 4 years old. But not only do the Jedi groom their inductees, but at a very young age put them in real life and death situations with no adult supervision. In the animated TV show The Clone Wars Season 5 Episode 6, we are introduced to the rite of passage known as The Gathering. The younglings, Petro, Katuni, Biff, Ganodi, Zat and Gunji, are tasked to find their Kyber crystal for their lightsabers in the caves of Ilum, one of the most sacred places for the Jedi. As the younglings prepare for their adventure, Ahsoka warns them.
Once you have found your crystal, do not remain inside. As daylight ends, the door will freeze over again and you will be trapped.
For how long?
For one rotation, there will be nothing anyone can do for you.
That's nearly 3 weeks without food, water or heat, potentially trapped alone in an ice cave.
Come on!
Help them. You will not.
The children are sent into this cave with little to no care for their safety and face multiple near-death experiences. I wonder what Shmi and all those other parents who gave their child to the Jedi would think if they knew. The Jedi Council over the many years has seen many members, but none in my opinion as misguided and dangerous as Ki-Adi-Mundi. Remember, the Jedi Council members are meant to be the best of the Jedi, paragons of virtue, leaders of the faith, of solid moral character. So where did it all go wrong with Mr. Mundi? Our first meeting of Ki-Adi-Mundi is in the widely unpopular show The Acolyte. In episode 4, Ki-Adi-Mundi is informed about a Sith. This is approximately 100 years before the events of the Phantom Menace.
Her emotions guide her every choice in combat.
Yet there is skill there.
This causes a significant issue, as in the Phantom Menace, after Qui-Gon Jinn goes face to face with Darth Maul, Qui-Gon speaks to the Council to inform them that the Sith have returned.
My only conclusion can be that it was a Sith Lord.
Impossible. The Sith have been extinct for a millennium.
This is a wild thing to say, as he saw a Sith with his own eyes some 100 years prior. But this comes at no surprise to us, as Mundi is mostly seen in the Jedi Council meetings, and there is a pattern to what he has to say in these meetings. He is always messing things up. In the Attack of the Clones, when Padme informs Supreme Chancellor Palpatine that she believes,
I think the Count Dooku is behind it.
He is a political idealist, not a murderer.
Well, let's see about that. Just because Count Dooku was a Jedi does not mean he's not capable of wrongdoing. Mundi was even one of the first to accuse Ahsoka Tano of the Jedi Temple bombing, even with what little evidence there was.
Surely we cannot do what Tarkin suggests. We need to stand together with Ahsoka.
And yet there's evidence that she is indeed the mastermind behind the attack on the temple.
This only further isolated Anakin from the Jedi, the Council, and the people he loved and trusted when he would need them most. In yet another council meeting, we see Ki-Adi-Mundi insist that Kashyyyk is a key planetary asset. This leads to Yoda leaving Coruscant without a Jedi Master, and at such a crucial moment, this was one of the very last straws to end the Jedi Order.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
It is critical we send an attack group there immediately.
He's right. It's a system we cannot afford to lose.
Go, I will. Good relations with the Wookiees I have.
My
people have been massacred, and Olmec is now the Prime Minister. I need your help.
Mundy was one of the leading voices to refuse Duchess Satine's calls for aid, which eventually led to the Night of 1,000 Tears. While his opinion is politically sound, was still one of the reasons for the Great Purge of Mandalore.
This is an internal affair for the Mandalorians. I'm afraid we cannot help.
Which led to the acquisition of Beskar by the crime families and the Galactic Empire. You remember Beskar, right? Only metal that's impervious to lightsabers. I'm sure this won't be a problem later. Mundy even believed that he knew better than Yoda. He told Yoda that his research into what's commonly referred to as Force ghosts was a fool's errand. And when Yoda continued his research, Mundy insinuated that Yoda may in fact be under the influence of the dark side of the Force.
What are your thoughts on this, Doctor?
Medically, Yoda seems fine, but I cannot speak to his spiritual balance.
What Yoda claims is not possible. The dead are part of the cosmic force and lose their individuality. I fear Yoda is under attack by the Sith, though how remains unknown to us.
Mundy is a Syrian male. The Syrian species has a skewed birth ratio of about 20 females to every 1 male. This led to the Jedi Order allowing him to break the rules of marriage. Unlucky for Anakin, Mundy had a polygamous family of 5 wives and had 7 daughters, focused his family life on ensuring the passing of his name to a male heir, which sadly for him did not come to pass. Mundy's core belief is emotional detachment, which is the path of setting your emotions aside to focus on the will of the Force. Mundy believes that emotions should be secondary to what the will of the Force was or is interpreted to be. In On Hostile Ground, the 62nd issue in the Star Wars Republic series of comics, Mundy tries to comfort Anakin, who is struggling with the supposed death of his master, Obi-Wan.
You are distressed, young Padawan. I felt it in the Force, Anakin. I suspect they could have felt it on Coruscant.
I'm fine, Master Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Your assignment as my Padawan is new and perhaps only temporary. I understand that trust takes time. Still, I hope you will be open with me. Obi-Wan's death continues to trouble you, doesn't it?
That's part of the problem, Master. My feelings tell me Obi-Wan is still alive, and he needs me.
If that were so, wouldn't he have made himself known by now?
His body was never recovered on Jabim.
There may have been no body to recover. That was the case when my family was killed during the Battle of Syria. I also found it difficult to accept, but I had to if I was going to stay true to our beliefs.
Forgive me, Master, but I have always wondered how it is that you had a family. The Jedi Code seems very strict, and yet...
I was granted an exception because of the low Syrian birth rate and our social customs. The Jedi Code forbids attachments. I cared for them, but I tried to remain unattached. It was always difficult.
It is always difficult. I'm told to trust my feelings, but then told some feelings are not allowed, or, like with Master Obi-Wan, that they're misleading. How am I supposed to be sure of what to trust, or who?
You are still a Padawan, young Skywalker, for all your potential. What seems clouded now will become clearer later. That is why you still need a master to help guide you and your understanding. You should rest, Anakin. We're approaching Varanat, and are likely to encounter those pirates infecting the system very soon.
Yes, Master. I have just a few more adjustments to make. I'll be done soon. He's alive. I know Obi-Wan's alive. He has to be.
This wise Jedi Master basically said to Anakin, who is still grieving for the loss of his father figure, "Don't mourn, I've just lost my whole family. You shouldn't mourn having lost just one. Be like me, I'm doing great." But do you get my point? I mean, for fuck's sake, the man ordered the use of flamethrowers on sentient life forms to cause unnecessary suffering.
Bring in the flamethrowers!
Much to the surprise of many, the Jedi have even been known to commit genocide. Around the year 1032 BBY was the Great Hyperspace War. This saw a newly formed Sith Empire wage a military campaign against both the Republic and the Jedi, which was eventually lost. This led to the Supreme Chancellor at the time calling for the extinction of the Sith, which the Jedi humbly completed. This was eventually known as the Sith Holocaust. Seems like a pretty dark side thing to murder an entire generation. We even see issues in the Jedi as far back as the time of the Old Republic, such as when Jedi Master Denelm Orr found a young Sahar Kateen. Orr found Sahar was Force sensitive and forcibly separated her from her older brother, Rikan Kateen, leaving him to his fate of being a slave.
I did it! Did you see? Wow.
Will you be taking both children?
No. The brother shows little connection with the Force. Sahar, the Force has chosen you.
I sense your past, Padawan.
You can't take her!
Your pain. Your fear. This is how the Sith and Jedi maintain control. Revealing the ways of the Force to some. And keeping it from others. How many were left behind? So that the Jedi could play God.
As further evidence of the Jedi having a dark side, we see Yoda admit that he has a dark side himself. This is when he confronts it in Season 6, Episode 12 of the Clone Wars. This goes to show that the Jedi are not as infallible as they so believe.
Part of me you are. Yes. But power over me you have not. Through patience and training, it is I who control you. Control over me you have not. My dark side you are. Reject you I do.
The Jedi have become an institution far more than a way of life, or even a religion, and their dogmatic principles have become far more rooted in tradition than anything else. And when we look at the Clone Wars, what's important to realise is that the Jedi aren't fighting an invading force, or a threat to democracy. They're fighting people trying to be free of the Republic, and by association, the Jedi Council. While there were sinister forces at work behind the scenes, the people involved wholeheartedly believed they were doing so in the name of freedom. Would you believe that the Jedi even commit war crimes? After catching the renowned bounty hunter and Jedi killer Cad Bane, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan and Anakin team up to torture Cad Bane for information about a holocron.
You will take us to the holocron.
Jedi mind tricks don't work on me.
You will take us to the holocron.
Forget it.
You will take us to the holocron.
I won't.
And you will take us now.
I will take you. No! Get out of my head!
In Season 5, Episode 2 of the Clone Wars, we're introduced to Saul Guerrera, who you may know from Rogue One or Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But the Saul Guerrera of the Clone Wars is far from the same man that we know in Fallen Order and Rogue One. Saul is introduced as an idealist, a young, hopeful man wanting to fight off the CIS with his friends and family at his back. In a plea to overthrow his king, he asks the Jedi Council for help. However, Obi-Wan says,
"How we conduct war is what distinguishes us from others. Funding rebels to overthrow a legitimate government puts innocent lives at risk."
But not only do the Jedi supply a steady stream of cash and weaponry to fund the coup, but Anakin, Ahsoka, Kenobi, and a detachment of clones are deployed to teach the rebels how to decentralize their government and destroy their enemies with Jedi precision.
The pilot in the front hatch controls the tank, the shells, and the short-range blasters. The commander in the top hatch controls the turret and the main cannon. You have to take out both chambers, otherwise the tank will remain operational.
Everyone, divide up into teams of 2, and we'll practice an assault on both hatches.
So when we see Saul in the many years since, the same man who now uses animals to torture and interrogate prisoners, it begs the question, is this something he learned from the Jedi? From Obi-Wan? A widely spoken about critique of the Jedi is their stance on slavery. The Jedi, while not a government force, does in fact have a jail called the Citadel, but who works there? The clones. The clones were born into a system that indoctrinated them into viewing their slavery as duty. While this technically didn't break the law, as the Republic at the time had already outlawed slavery, but this does not change the fact that they were in fact slaves, unable to leave the army or make any meaningful life decisions for themselves. One of the only clones we know that was able to escape and take his freedom into his own hands was Cutler Quain, but once he meets Captain Rex, is threatened to be re-enlisted until Cut changes Rex's mind after risking his and his family's life. The hypocrisy is ever so clear when you remember the Jedi have their own slave army and have no qualms about it, but when it comes to the Chosen One's mother, Shmi, do they raise a finger to help? No. I always wondered what would have happened to the Chosen One if he had an actual parent as he grew up. The Jedi's relationship with their Padawans is never better contrasted than in Season 2, Episode 6. In this episode, we see Luminara Unduli's Padawan, Barriss Offee, and Ahsoka Tano, Anakin's Padawan, buried alive in an explosion. Anakin's instant reaction to this is to comfort Luminara, letting her know that they will get them back, but to his shock, is told not to worry because she knows they are alive, but knows that they will perish soon, so not to bother as they don't have enough time.
Master Luminara, don't worry.
Be at ease, Skywalker.
At ease? We need to act now! Ahsoka and Barriss may still be alive down there.
There's not enough time. I sense them drifting away.
No, we'll get them out.
Anakin, who eventually finds them, scolds Luminara.
I knew they were still alive. I told you we shouldn't give up on them.
It's not that I gave up, Skywalker, but unlike you, when the time comes, I am prepared to let my student go. Can you say the same?
I wonder if Luminara's failings as a master will come to bite her in the arse later.
Who could successfully bomb the Jedi Temple?
A few months before Order 66, the Jedi Council call a meeting to discuss some troubling news.
No, now we do. That guide the creation of the clones from the beginning. Dooku did. Our enemy created an army for us.
That's right, they find out that Dooku was involved in the creation of the clones from the beginning. They fully know their enemy made them an army. But what do they do with this knowledge? They do nothing.
Play his game. We must. No one, not even the Chancellor, may know.
This action was the final nail in so many Jedi coffins. In Season 2, Episode 19, shortly after the Battle of Malastare, under the orders of Chancellor Palpatine, Windu and Anakin are to deliver one of the most deadly animals in existence, called Zilabist, to Coruscant. Here it is to be experimented on, and sadly, the animal, the last of its kind, will ultimately face its end here. But before this, and to no one's surprise, the Zilabist escapes and kills many civilians and troopers. So I ask you, was this done in the light or the shadow of the Jedi Code? When you remember that the Jedi have always meant to be peacekeepers, not soldiers, nor puppets of the Senate, then this hits home all the more.
We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
And the most heartbreaking point is when you remember Ahsoka, who was literally, in every sense of the word, a child soldier.
As a Jedi, we were trained to be keepers of the peace, not soldiers. But all I've been since I was a Padawan is a soldier.
Remember what you told me. The Jedi blindly serve a corrupt Senate that fails the Republic it represents. You want to prove your loyalty? Kill her.
In a deleted scene from Attack of the Clones, Dooku says to Padme,
"The Republic cannot be fixed, my lady. It is time to start over."
This is widely acknowledged to be what Dooku believes, that there cannot be a future for the Republic. The roots of corruption run too deep. The melancholy of the ruling class's regard for the public's well-being has not only grown, but taken over and has become a terminal cancer. But who was Dooku? A child born to the ruling family of Sereno, who was abandoned by his parents at a young age for his connection with the Force.
A son he didn't want. A son he hated.
You don't know that.
Don't I? Do you know what he did? Yoda said Gora left me outside his castle's walls.
Dooku, a charismatic, vastly gifted and politically minded man, was raised in the Jedi Order, trained, mentored and overseen by Yoda. That is, until such a time that he became disillusioned by the Jedi and the Republic. Dooku, who eventually became the second apprentice of Darth Sidious, worked tirelessly to advance the grand plan, while being completely unaware that Sidious viewed him as no more than a pawn. But how did Dooku, who was one of the greatest duelists in history, become the pawn of Palpatine? Let's look at a timeline of events. In 90 BBY, the Jedi are invited to Sereno for an event called Showcase for the Galaxy. Dooku, Yoda, and Dooku's best friend, Sifo-Dyas, along with some other accompanying Jedi, go to the event, where later Dooku meets his long-lost sister, Genza. Dooku is shown around his ancestral hometown. While exploring, he finds a carving of a creature called the Tirataka. He finds the carving to radiate a dark energy. Struggling against his impulses, he touches the carving, which leads to a collapse of the building that they are inside.
Tirataka.
Dooku, don't!
My fingers brushed the stone, and the world was torn apart.
But this isn't his only encounter with dark artifacts. 2 years later, in 88 BBY, Dooku and Sifo-Dyas break into the secret collection of Sith and dark side artifacts hidden inside the Jedi archives. It is known as the Bogan Collection. The pair are caught after Dooku encountered a piece of metal that seemed to connect with him to the same Tirataka from Sereno.
There's something about it. Something I've felt before.
Dooku explained what he had seen to the Jedi who caught him, only to be dismissed. However, Lean Kostana was concerned with what Dooku had seen.
Tell me, Dooku, what did you see?
Now is not the time.
Really? The boy obviously disturbed something down there. We should understand what it was.
Lean would continually urge the Jedi Council to take Sith and dark side threats far more seriously than they had.
Gone the Sith are.
Yes, but what if we're wrong? What if reducing them to a footnote of history is playing into their hands? Younglings like Dooku should be trained to identify and combat their relics.
In the same year, during Dooku's training, Master Kostana secretly gave a Sith artifact to Sifo-Dyas.
The bestiary of Darth Kaldoth, see?
But what's Kostana doing with Sith texts?
Dooku eventually confronts her, demanding to know why she gave his friend a Sith script.
I can feel it inside you. Frustration. Anger.
Is that so?
After the two fight, to Dooku's near victory, which is ultimately stopped by Yoda. Yoda proceeds to scold Kostana for her constant need to test the initiates by exposing them to dark side artifacts.
Ignoring the past, as always.
Not the time now is, Master Kostana.
I don't understand.
It's quite simple, Dooku. I believe the Jedi must be prepared for a Sith uprising, whereas Master Yoda thinks such preparations are
unnecessary.
Following this, Dooku took a great deal of interest in her work studying the dark side and her theories concerning the Sith. So in the last 2 years, Dooku has been exposed to a variety of Sith artifacts at a very young age, all while being under the care and protection of the Jedi Order. In 85 BBY, Sifo-Dyas receives a Force vision of a deadly solar storm hitting the planet of Protogrange.
Where were you?
A planet, not far from here. Millions will die.
After informing the Jedi Council, Dooku, who supported Sifo-Dyas and Kostana's suggestion that they warn the planet, was forbidden by Yoda and the Council, who pointed out that Force visions were not absolute, as the future is always in motion.
We should warn them.
No.
But Master, if they could prepare themselves.
No, I said.
But why?
Because misleading visions can be. Never certain the future is.
Ultimately, Sifo-Dyas' vision came to pass. A powerful solar storm hit Protobranch, killing much of the population.
All around the planet, cities that had been suspended in the air for decades plowed into the endless fields, plumes of dirt rising up to greet the bodies falling to their death.
The events with Protobranch shook Dooku's respect for the Republic and the Jedi Council, feeling the Council was somewhat responsible for the deaths that had occurred, by not taking Cypher Dyas' vision seriously and refusing to act.
There is much we could have done differently, much we should have done, but they wouldn't listen. They never listen.
Dooku was disgusted by the fact that the Republic's primary concern was the loss of Protobranch's resources and not its inhabitants.
Senator Tavetti wishes to know how much Bacta you will be able to salvage.
There's no way of knowing. Not yet. The loss of life must be...
He will need a full report as soon as possible.
But what about the people? What about survivors?
In 82 BBY, Dooku is contacted again by his sister, who he has remained in contact with, going against the Jedi's teachings about attachment. Jensa tells Dooku that his mother has died and that she needs him there. When Kastana finds out that Dooku has her hidden holocron, she confronts him.
The Jedi are supposed to protect the galaxy, and yet we remove ourselves from it. Cut ourselves off. I can help her. I owe it to her. She's always been there. My guiding light.
The Force should be your guide.
And the Force is in all things. Who's to say that it hasn't been working through her all these years? Who's to say it can't work through me now?
Around the year 80 BBY, Dooku arrests the Genet crime lord Senevax after finding out she has a spy on the Jedi Council.
She has a contact on the Jedi Council.
You have no proof.
Tell me who it is.
Upon bringing her to the council chamber where he made his accusation, the council is shaken. Dooku, through the Force, senses Eula Braylon's guilt.
I can sense her guilt from here. Master Braylon. I've known you all my life. Will you lie to me now? Will you lie to all of us?
It's true. All of it. I have looked the other way for years.
Eula Braylon's actions cause her to be removed from the council. Dooku inquires to Yoda what will happen to Senevax. He is told that she will be taken to the Citadel. Dismayed at the prospect of the Jedi taking the law into their own hands, Dooku has his faith shaken in the Order once again.
The Citadel? Only Jedi are sent there. We're not going to the authorities with any of this, are we? What am I saying? We are the authorities.
Like this, I do not. But understand, you must.
Oh, I understand, Yoda. I understand all too well.
Dooku is offered a seat on the council, which he accepts, as he feels that change needs to come from within. In the years between 68 and 58 BBY, as shown in Season 1, Episode 2 of Tales of the Jedi, we meet a middle-aged Dooku and his Padawan, Qui-Gon Jinn. Dooku and Jinn have been sent to the planet Romar to rescue the kidnapped son of the planet's senator, Uriel Dagonet, only to find that the whole town is responsible for the kidnapping.
Come. I will show you where the senator's son is.
You're one of the kidnappers.
They all are.
When Uriel finds Dooku in the middle of his investigation, he demands to Dooku that his son is released.
Let me assure you, your son is in no immediate danger. I'll be the judge of that. Judge! You serve the Senate. No. We serve the people of this republic.
Dooku, having seen the slaughter at the hands of Uriel's forces, is enraged.
None shall defy me, not even you, Master Jedi.
Master!
Go! Save your father.
What?
Go now!
Corruption like yours must be eradicated.
No! Stop!
Master, it's over.
This goes to show that the failings of the Jedi are finally getting to Dooku, but luckily Qui-Gon is here, for now. Between 48 and 50 BBY, we see Dooku and Windu in Season 1, Episode 3, travel to Raxus Secundus to retrieve the body of the late Master Katri. Dooku insists to Windu that they investigate the death of Katri, where they uncover a corrupt senator and the plot to use his corrupt nature to free the planet from the Republic.
For a Jedi to succumb to a surprise attack is rare, unless that attack is from someone one would trust, like you. I will have the truth.
However, Dooku's actions are not what Windu or the Order would deem appropriate.
Since we are not members of the Council, we cannot involve ourselves in local political skirmishes unless requested by the Jedi High Council or Senate.
My friend, your devotion to rules is sometimes inspiring and sometimes maddening.
The adherence to the rules was deemed to limit the scope of the mission by Dooku, as he wanted answers for Katri's death. Dooku confronts the guards as to why they have done this.
We are part of a group who learned Larrick was using his ascendancy to become rich at the expense of our people and planet. He was willing to bleed Raxus dry, luring off world companies to come in and industrialize the land. He was selling off our planet, piece by piece, all from his comfortable residence on faraway Coruscant.
Why didn't you take this to the proper authorities? Katri was a keeper of the peace.
Jedi are lapdogs of the Senate. Their bidding always comes first. It's evident throughout the galaxy. Jedi claim peace, but mostly keep law and order for the rich and powerful.
It is made clear to Dooku and Windu the rebels are becoming separatists, with the intentions of trying to free their planet from a system that they see as corrupt, which Dooku already knows. Dooku and Windu place the guard captain under arrest, and Dooku leaves him with these words.
I don't condone your methods, but you had every right to protect your planet. Make sure your people don't lose heart and evolve, Samaj. It is the only way you will truly have victory.
While bringing back the body of the late Master Katri, the matters that transpired on Raxus Secundus leaves Dooku concerned.
Do you think the Jedi will truly keep peace if they continue to take everything the Senate says as law?
Luckily, we are guided by our council and not by politics.
Windu is promoted to Katri's seat on the council for following the rules. This leaves Dooku displeased.
I am told you will be presented with Master Katri's council seats.
I will. I stuck to the mission. You decided to interfere in a way that led to a senator's death. I will speak to the council on your behalf.
How kind of you, Master Jedi.
In 42 BBY, Dooku would return to Sereno after being contacted again by Jenza. Here, she asks for the Jedi's assistance. Their father has died, and Ramil, their brother, has taken over, continuing in his father's footsteps of making selfish choices while ruling the planet. Ramil, who hired Abyssian mercenaries to attack the planet to turn the people against the Republic. The Jedi Order, following the request of the Senate, refuse assistance to Sereno because of Ramil's refusal to honour their financial tax responsibilities to the Republic.
I'm sorry, Master Dooku, but the Council's hands are tied.
We sympathize, T4, but must concur with the Senate's ruling. From what we have learned, the Count of Sereno has refused to honor his fiscal responsibilities.
Fiscal responsibilities? Aerith, we are Jedi, not accountants.
Upset by the ruling, Costana and Cypher Diaz would join Dooku in providing assistance to his homeworld. In the ensuing battle, Dooku kills his brother Ramil by travelling too deeply into the dark side. After killing his brother, Dooku decides that he needs to leave the Order to help Sereno, feeling it is his responsibility after all his brother has done.
The Jedi have been my family since I was a child. The Temple, my home. But my future lies here, on Sereno.
Leaving the Order, you are.
I have no choice. The House of Sereno brought this planet to its knees. It is my responsibility, my duty, to rebuild it by whatever means possible.
Between 36 and 32 BBY, in the book Darth Plagueis, we see glimpses of the various conversations that Palpatine had with Dooku. Once, Dooku even admitted,
I'm giving thought to leaving the Order.
Master Dooku told Palpatine, I can no longer abide the decisions of the Council, and I have to be free to speak my mind about the wretched state of the Republic. If one more Jedi dies because of indolence on the part of the Republic, and moral equivocation on the part of the Council, I will leave the Temple.
In Season 1, Episode 4 of The Tales of the Jedi, we finally see Dooku's complete transition to the Sith. Dooku, who has since left the Order, is visiting the temple to remove Kamino from the Jedi database. This is where he runs into Jocasta Nu, who tells Dooku about Qui-Gon Jinn's recent run-in with a Sith Lord.
What's causing all the excitement, Master Jocasta?
Your apprentice?
Qui-Gon?
Yes. It would seem he has encountered a Sith Lord. Or so he claimed to the Jedi High Council.
Dooku tracks down Qui-Gon, finding his old apprentice with Yaddle.
I encountered a highly skilled warrior, one obviously trained in the Jedi arts.
And you believe it was a Sith Lord?
Yes.
I gather the Council was not eager to validate that conclusion.
No, they were not, Master.
Speaking on behalf of the Council, there's no reason to cause undue alarm.
So you doubt his claim?
No, I do not. But the wisdom of the Council is to be cautious.
I've been warning them about the coming darkness for years. Never to be taken seriously. The Sith Lord is not to be trifled with. And I will not be there to protect you, my old Padawan.
But sadly, as we know, in the short time to come, Qui-Gon's next meeting with Darth Maul would be his last. We see a distraught Dooku back at the temple, preparing to say goodbye to his beloved Padawan.
I used to bring Qui-Gon here as a boy.
He was fascinated with this tree, having been born here on Coruscant, a planet of steel and stone. He knew nothing like it.
Council is leaving for Naboo. The funeral is to be held there.
I doubt I would be pleasant company.
You hold them accountable.
Qui-Gon Jinn has become one with the Force. It is time to let him go.
And you can do this?
What choice have I?
When Yaddle asks Dooku if he blames the Council, well, how could he not? As he said, he'd been warning them for years, as had Jedi Master Costana, and now Qui-Gon. All these warnings, the Council disagreed, leading to more waste of Jedi life. Dooku travels to a meeting with Darth Sidious to confront him about the loss of Qui-Gon, only to be met with distrust from Sidious. Here we see the seeds of Dooku's regret for all he has done.
Sifo Dyas, Kamino, the clones. I have betrayed everyone and everything I know.
No, you have been loyal to a greater cause.
How many have died because of my actions?
Yaddle, who follows Dooku, sensing something is wrong, tries to save Dooku, to bring him back to the light.
You were right about so many things. The Council should have listened. Qui-Gon did not have to die.
But, as he says,
I'm afraid it is too late.
In 22 BBY, hours before the first Battle of Geonosis, when Dooku speaks to Obi-Wan in an effort to persuade him to join him, Dooku goes so far to tell Obi-Wan his master's plan, giving him a warning of the future yet to come. But Obi-Wan doesn't believe him.
What if I told you that the Republic was now under the control of the Dark Lord of the Sith?
No, that's not possible. The Jedi would be aware of it.
The dark side of the Force has clouded their vision, my friend. Hundreds of senators are now under the influence of a Sith Lord called Darth Sidious.
I don't believe you.
In 19 BBY, Dooku's reign as Darth Tyrannus comes to an end. Over the years of the Clone Wars, Dooku was tasked to test Anakin, but not to kill him, to gauge his skills, as he will be useful later. Dooku, ever the apprentice doing what his master asked, agrees. Sadly, in Revenge of the Sith, we see the end of Dooku at the hands of the soon-to-be Darth Vader. But this shot here says so much. In this singular moment, he realises after all these years, all the betrayals, all the lies, all the killing, all the work was for nothing. For he was in fact just a pawn of his master's game. He was always going to die. While the Jedi were not solely responsible for his actions, they do at least hold some, if not a lot, of accountability. In the many years of Dooku's life, he was failed by everyone. His master, Yoda, by providing access to Sith artifacts from such a young age, failing to protect him from not only those artifacts, but from himself. The Council, by lying and failing to protect him and the people they supposedly swore to serve. Allowing his friends, his Padawans, to die needlessly, only for Dooku himself to become the one thing they swore to stand against, a Sith. Sadly, he wasn't the only one to fall. So if Dooku marks the start of the disillusionment of the Jedi by his fall, then Qui-Gon continues this by dying for it, and Anakin ends it by killing for it. This marks the circle as complete. The story of Star Wars closely follows the rise and eventual fall of Anakin, the hero with no fear, the chosen one, and eventually Darth Vader. When looked at in greater detail, it is far more insidious than is perceived on the surface. The failure of Anakin is to me one of the most solemn stories ever told. A man who suffers with great power and even greater fear is pushed away by everyone around him, some through fear, some for political, ideological or emotional reasons, but in the end, Anakin is left alone to suffer all his greatest fears. Looking at Anakin's story chronologically gives us a greater view of Anakin's eventual fall from the light of the Jedi. Anakin, an only child raised by his single mother Shmi on the planet of Tatooine. Anakin, who we first meet in The Phantom Menace, informs Padme that although he is a slave, he is human and demands to be called by his name.
I'm a person and my name is Anakin.
As a slave outside the jurisdiction of the Republic, Anakin tried to hold on to as much independence as possible, which is seen to be by taking dangerous risks. This is mainly showed to us through Anakin's love of pod racing. Anakin is entered into the Boonta Eve Classic by Qui-Gon Jinn as his sponsor, all despite knowing that the pod race is extremely dangerous.
They're pod racing on Malastare. Very fast, very dangerous.
But Anakin, desperate to help, puts himself at risk by competing. We already know that Anakin is supposedly the chosen one, and that he is taken by Qui-Gon whilst his mother is left on Tatooine. This is all while the Council believes that he is too old to be trained. So when we fast forward to Attack of the Clones, and we see Obi-Wan downplay Anakin's visions of his mother's suffering and death.
You look tired. I don't sleep well anymore. Because of your mother? I don't know why I keep dreaming about her. Dreams pass in time.
It leaves us wondering why, if this bothers his Padawan so much, who he loves, why doesn't he support him, help him to prove that these visions are nothing more than nightmares, and are not visions of the future like Cypher Dyas had before him? Anakin wants so desperately to be a master so that he can gain access to the restricted section of the Jedi archives. This is so that he can look for ways to save his loved ones. Later we see the Council send Anakin and Padme on a mission, where staying together at all times is quite literally the mission objective, as Padme's life is under threat. This is all while knowing that Anakin has little to no self-control and has an attachment to Padme that he has harboured since he first met her. Does this not seem like a recipe for emotional attachment to you? When we see Anakin use his sorrow and anger and hatred to murder the Tuscans, we should ask, but where have we seen this before? Where did he learn this reaction? Could it maybe be from his master, who did the exact same thing to kill Darth Maul? Spoilers, he's not dead. But what we should take into account for Anakin is, being out of control of your emotions feels like being under control, at least to someone who was born a slave. In Season 3, Episode 15 to Episode 17, we're introduced to the embodiment of the light, the dark, and the balance within the Force, known as the Ones. In this episode, we have the long-asked question of, is Anakin, the Chosen One, finally answered? And we are told yes, he is in fact the Chosen One. Anakin is finally shown the truth of his power. He is shown that he is not only capable of bringing balance to the Force, but he has such a strong connection to both the light and the dark side of the Force that he himself can bring the gods of the light and dark to their knees.
On your knees!
And now you see who you truly are. Only the Chosen One could tame both my children.
While on this adventure, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka are warned about Anakin, warned that he is on a tipping point. At this very time is where Anakin's dance on a knife edge between the light and the dark is soon to be answered. Obi-Wan is warned by his old master, Qui-Gon Jinn.
Obi-Wan, have you done as I asked? Have you trained the boy?
Master Qui-Gon, how are you here?
I am here because you are here.
No, I don't understand. What is this place?
Unlike any other, a conduit through which the entire force of the universe flows.
Are we in danger?
This planet is both an amplifier and a magnet. 3 are here who seek Skywalker. They, like me, believe him to be the Chosen One.
You are right. The force within him is stronger than any known Jedi. I've trained him as well as I could, but he's still willful and balance eludes him.
If he is the Chosen One, he will discover it here.
And if not?
Then you must realize with his power, this is a very dangerous place for him to be.
While Ahsoka is warned by her future self.
There is a wildness to you, young one. Seeds of the dark side planted by your master. Do you feel it?
No. He is like no other Jedi. Passionate, impulsive, but I trust him with my life.
There are many contradictions in you, and in him. Be warned. You may never see your future if you remain his student. Leave this planet!
Later in these episodes, Anakin is shown his future by the Son. Anakin is distraught to know that he will bring so much death and destruction to the universe. This future, while not known to Obi-Wan and Ahsoka, goes to show that these visions that the gods have allowed them to see are rooted in truth. Later, when Anakin has his memory of the future wiped by the Father, it leaves us with one question. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan have been shown that Anakin is in fact the Chosen One, also been warned that Anakin is on unstable ground between the light and the dark. So after the many hijinks on this adventure, such as Ahsoka being killed and then revived, and both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka being held under the threat of death by the Force gods, why did they not take what has happened more seriously? Why did they not provide Anakin with more support, knowing that to all intents and purposes, he is their religion's messiah? In the story arc of Season 4, Episode 15 to 18, we see Obi-Wan's death is revealed to be a plan by Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Windu. It is decided to fake Obi-Wan's death so that he can pretend to be a member of a looming plot to kidnap Palpatine. Kenobi undergoes a full transformation via nanotechnology to describe himself as the supposed killer of Obi-Wan, Rako Hardeen. Anakin and Ahsoka, however, have not been made aware of this plan in order to assure its success. So let me get this straight. The Chosen One, who we already know has severe attachment issues, has his father figure supposedly killed by the order he is meant to trust, all under the guise of stopping a politician's kidnapping. Is this really the job for peacekeepers? And not, I don't know, the job for the Republic's police force? Upon Anakin finding all of this out, he is obviously shaken at both Obi-Wan and the Council.
You've lied to me. How many other lies have I been told by the Council? And how do you know that you even have the whole truth?
Later in Season 5, Episode 20 of the Clone Wars, we see one of the last connections to his faith in the Jedi Order extinguished. Ahsoka, Anakin's Padawan, is framed and found guilty for a terrorist attack on the Jedi Temple. Anakin is heartbroken by this, refusing to believe it, and goes on a hunt to find the culprit. However, when he does find the culprit and they admit to their crimes, Ahsoka refuses to come back, as her faith and loyalty to the Jedi Order meant nothing to them. And when they refused to hear her side of the story and they followed Tarkin's orders blindly, she knew that she could never return. And thus, Anakin has one less person he can turn to in the days ahead. In Revenge of the Sith, Anakin is finally made a member of the Council, a feat that he has been chasing for years at this point. But not for the prestige, not for the power of being known as the youngest master in Jedi history, no, but to have access to the restricted section of the Jedi archives, all so that he can learn how to save his loved ones. So when Anakin is told he is a member of the Council, but not a Jedi Master, yet again, it adds another reason for Anakin to resent the Council. His reaction is understandable.
What kind of nonsense is this? Put me on the Council and not make me a master? It's never been done in the history of the Jedi. It's insulting.
Oh, calm down, Anakin. You have been given a great honor.
From a certain point of view, Anakin was right when he even defends Palpatine. Regardless of Windu's suspicion of Palpatine being a Sith Lord, Windu and the Council attempt a coup on a democratically elected leader, with the intention of executing him without a trial. So was Anakin not in the right for demanding that he has a fair trial, stating that assassination isn't the Jedi way?
He's too dangerous to be left alive.
I'm too weak. Don't kill me. Please.
It's not the Jedi way.
This brings us to the Battle of Mustafar, and the build-up around this really summarises all of the failings of the Jedi. In the hours before the final confrontation of Anakin and Obi-Wan, Yoda orders Anakin's father figure, Obi-Wan, to kill Anakin, believing that Obi-Wan, despite all of his emotional connections, will be able to kill his Padawan. Anakin's unknown whereabouts leads Obi-Wan to betray, manipulate, and use Padme to betray Anakin, leading an already emotional and scared Anakin to believe that his wife, the love of his life since he was 9 years old, betrayed him willingly. While Padme tries to explain to Anakin and talk him down, Obi-Wan interferes and riles him up, leading to Padme's eventual death. Obi-Wan, who's given up on peace and draws his lightsaber first, stops just short from killing Anakin, choosing instead to leave him to burn and bleed to death. Not feeling fully accomplished by this, Obi-Wan steals Anakin's lightsaber that he later uses to convince Luke to leave his family, as is the Jedi way. While from a certain point of view, Obi-Wan may have believed he was doing the right thing, with the context we have, we can see the danger in all of these actions. Everything the Jedi did involving Anakin was a lesson in failure and oversight. Anakin's fall to the dark side is the ultimate failure of the Jedi Order and shines a light on the failings of the Jedi. The Jedi took the teachings of emotional detachment to such an extreme that they refused to accept that love can play a part in the Force by forbidding all expressions of it. Anakin, as Darth Vader, becomes the symbol of the Jedi's refusal to learn, change, or adapt. So I leave you with one last question. If Anakin's lived experience is seeing the problems of the light side and the benefits of the dark, then ultimately, what was he expected to choose? In A New Hope, the Star Wars story moves from the father to the son. Luke Skywalker, an on the surface unremarkable boy, a farmhand who unbeknownst to him was since birth set on a path for greatness. Also, we're led to believe. Luke meets an old man who he somewhat knows called Old Ben, who we also know as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Ben tells him everything he has been told about his father from his aunt and uncle is a lie. That his father was
the best star pilot in the galaxy.
And wasn't.
He was a navigator on a spice freighter.
His father was in fact...
I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
How did my father die?
A young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father.
Following the death of Luke's aunt and uncle, Obi-Wan begins training Luke in the ways of the Force. The last time Old Ben and Vader met, Vader is again beaten. For some years at this point, Old Ben had removed himself from the Force, thus lowering his connection and power to the pure good that he once believed in so much. Despite this, he goes toe-to-toe with the 6'8" death machine that has single-handedly reunited more Jedi with the living Force than anyone else. However, upon Luke seeing old Ben and Vader fight, Ben decides to give his life. But to what purpose? At this point, Luke's knowledge of the Force and the broader universe around him and his place within it is minimal. But what he does believe is that Vader has killed not only his father, but now his mentor. Ben, having not seen Vader since their duel on the barren moon in Kenobi, ends this circle by giving his life as another push to get Luke to hate Vader. This is done in the hope that when Luke is ready, he will kill Vader, doing what Obi-Wan could not. Old Ben hopes for all this before Luke learns the truth of who Vader really is. When Ben finally, after multiple attempts, tells Luke who his father is,
He's more machine now than man, twisted and evil. You cannot escape your destiny. You must face Darth Vader again.
I can't kill my own father.
But to this reasonable response, Ben again tries one last-ditch effort to manipulate Luke by saying,
Then the Emperor has already won. You were our only hope.
Obi-Wan and Yoda, who despite being veteran generals of the Clone Wars, with more combat experience than the entire Rebel Corps combined, decide to go AWOL for decades following the rise of the Empire until the right moment. The right moment being when they can get their cult back up and running. I'm pretty sure the rebellion could have used their help and experience in the meantime. So after all this, has Luke learned right from wrong? Well, Luke uses Din's gift and Yoda's lightsaber to test the young Grogu's commitment to his family versus his education. This, my young Padawan, is called emotional manipulation.
The Mandalorian wanted you to have this. But before you take it, I will give you a choice. This is a lightsaber. I'm offering it to you. But you may choose only one. If you choose the armor, you'll return to your friend, the Mandalorian. However, you will be giving into attachment to those that you love, and forsaking the way of the Jedi. But if you choose the lightsaber, you will be the first student in my academy, and I will train you to be a great Jedi.
So sadly, it seems despite all the growth old Ben has achieved, Luke has failed to take on some of these lessons. Sometime after the events of Revenge of the Sith, Luke takes a 9-year-old Ben Solo away from his parents to train him, as is the Jedi way. Han doesn't see his son again for 20 years. Leia never sees her son again, all because of Luke's failings. He destroys this family, as is the Jedi way. When Luke is faced with these failings, he runs away to mope on an island and ignore his responsibilities, as is the Jedi way. I wonder where we've seen this before. Imagine if Luke had have helped save the galaxy as he had done before. Imagine if he had spoken to Kylo, explained or done something of use. Instead, he just leaves a convoluted treasure map to his location. But to alleviate any thoughts that the Jedi have only manipulated sentient life, we have even seen Jedi manipulate droids, allowing them to manipulate primitive creatures to fight a battle they are woefully incapable of winning without serious casualties. C-3PO is a droid and responds via learned behaviour. Does it feel ethically sound to manipulate a primitive, underarmed and underprepared race to fight this battle for you? While there is plenty more that we could go over and analyse, I hope that at the bare minimum I have given you something to think about. I hope that you can at least agree that the Jedi aren't as good as they frame themselves to be. So maybe, from a certain point of view, Luke was right when he said,
It's time for the Jedi to end.